I've mentioned it a few times, but I want to do a space shot, a rocket that goes over 100 kilometers and then comes back. As of now, the current design uses a long burn first stage P motor and then a short burn upper stage P motor. On that first stage, we could see speeds upwards of Mach 3, and on the second stage, we will likely be seeing speeds upwards of Mach 6. If I want the fins for this rocket to stay on, then I will need to learn and be able to make effective composite fin cans. Now, if you're not aware, a composite material is a material that is actually made of two separate materials that usually have a complementary strengths. The two materials we will be using in this fin can is fiberglass cloth and then laminating epoxy. Fiberglass cloth is good at tension, but is not good at compression. It just folds. So to keep the fiberglass cloth from folding in half, we will be using laminating epoxy. And here's the hard part about composites. If you don't combine these materials in the right way, it could lead to the separation of both materials, leading to two materials, and neither of them are good at doing what they need to do. Now, it might seem counterintuitive, but you do not want to oversaturate the fiberglass cloth with epoxy. If you do that, you are actually actively taking away from the strength of the layup. Now, this is the part of the video where I become a hypocrite and tell everyone that even though I just told you that you should measure your epoxy out, that I actually just eyeball it. Now that we have all that covered, we can start our first layup. Now, since I have never done a fiberglass layup, I decided that I should do a practice layup on a rocket that doesn't need it. Just in case I mess it up. Now, if you don't recognize this rocket, then it sounds like I have a video for you to watch. Now that we have talked about how a fiberglass layup works, we can start the layup. The first step of the layup is to perform lots of bond prep. Now, typically, you wouldn't do this after you paint the vehicle, but I didn't know that I wanted to do this 4 months ago when I was building and painting this rocket. So first I had to strip all the paint off the fins, then I could start the bond prep. Now, the key to bond prep is sanding, non-lint wipes, sanding, rubbing alcohol, and also additionally sanding. Now, after I did hours of sanding and wiping and all this surface prep, I was finally ready to start cutting cloth. And now, while past Liam cuts the cloth, I want to talk about my Patreon. I recently was looking through my Patreon page settings and found that my page was irreversibly set as 18 plus. And I can promise you that nothing on my page deserves that title. So I emailed Patreon, but it literally took forever to get a response out of them. And they couldn't even change it. They emailed me back and said, sorry, we can't change this. So I made a new page, and you can find the link to that in the description. I really encourage that you go check it out, because I can see how 18 plus can deter people, and it also, the page wasn't even, public, because I hadn't verified my ID, which, I'm not going to post 18 plus content, so, I'm not going to do that. So that was a whole hassle. So sorry about that, but the Patreon page is figured out, and I encourage that you go check it out, because podcast conversation participation is free. You can ask me questions, you can participate in the conversation of the podcast, and it's free for everyone. I also release all my videos 2 or 3 days early for paid Patreons, viewing, for Patreon viewing, and every 2 weeks I do an update on what I am doing right now in real time. Along with all that, Patreons also get all these benefits rolling across your screens right now, and they get their names at the end of the video now. You'll see that on this video. But if you can't support or don't want to support in that way, a like and a subscribe go a lot further than you would think. Now that I have all the fiberglass cut out, I mixed the epoxy for the layup and then poured it out onto the cloth and then squeezed it out using a popsicle stick. After this, I carefully put the cloth onto the rocket, then made sure that the cloth was as centered on the rocket as possible. Then I cut out the cloth for the second layer. I will not elaborate on that. Let's move on. After I finished cutting the cloth, I then poured the epoxy out onto the cloth and squeezed it out with the popsicle stick again. After this, I then laid it onto the first layer, being very careful to keep it as centered as possible. After this, I started work on the other 3 sides of the fins, but my GoPro ran out of battery. Now, before we wrap it up, I want to talk about some things I learned from this layup and what I have to improve on. One of the first things I realized while doing this layup was that I should cut the fiberglass cloth long before I start the layup. This way I don't have any unnecessary stress during the layup because I'm already being pressed pretty hard by the clock to get the thing done before the epoxy cures. The second thing that I will be doing on my next layup will be cutting some of the layers at 45-degree angles relative to the weave. The reason to do this is that when you think about fiberglass cloth, it's a weave. It can only resist tension in 2 directions, with the weave and then orthogonal or 90 degrees to that, which means that if I pull here, then the weave gets stretched, and that's not good. So by doing this 0-45 layup style, we can make the layup resist tension in multiple directions. Eventually, when I start doing layups to cut fins out of, I will be doing a 0-45-90 layup similar to Dragon Plate to take full advantage of this quirk. The third thing I learned was that measuring the cloth and epoxy could save me a whole lot of time. Sometimes I would pour out too much epoxy and have to squeeze it out of the cloth, and other times I would pour not enough and then I would need to add more. The final thing that I learned was that the surface of these layups would greatly benefit from putting a layer of 2-ounce cloth on top of the main structural layer, and also maybe putting a layer of peel ply on top of the finalized layup while the epoxy cures, which can also contribute to a smoother surface on the final product. Now, along with this test layup, I have a rocket ready to fly that needed a fiberglass layup, so I now have experience making layups of 2 different sizes of rocket. And if you want to see that video when it comes out, you can subscribe below or go check it out on Patreon. Also, when you subscribe, make sure that you have the bell set to all, because let me tell you from personal experience, YouTube is not good at telling you when someone puts out a new video. But for now, my name is Liam P, and I will see you next time.